Hey everybody, this is Kevin Vella with California Waterfowl, and we are going to touch on turkey calling. So right now we're going to go over the main different types of turkey calls, and then we're going to go over locator calls. So the first, and I would say the most user-friendly call, is going to be a box call. So a box call, essentially it consists of a paddle, and then the main frame of the box call, a sound chamber. The paddle itself, you can see, is actually chalked up. You can use that, and you're using this for friction. So there's two main types of calls: friction calls and then air calls. So this is a friction call and it's a box call. What you want to do is you want to go across that sound chamber with the paddle, pushing down slightly, and it makes a yelp sound. So right there, you're making a hen yelping noise. You go a little bit faster, you can make more of a cadence out of it. You can also do some cuts and some clucks. So that's a box call, and that's how a box call is run. The next thing we're going to touch on is some pot calls. So there's multiple different types of pot calls. I have a slate call here and a glass call. There's also aluminum calls. There's a bunch of different types of surfaces, but essentially you just want a surface that's going to create a lot of noise. And so here we have a slate, a glass, and I have two different types of strikers. This is a harder wood striker. It's going to be a little bit more of a higher pitch noise versus a softwood striker is that one. And with these, you hold the pot call in your hand like this with your fingers around it. You want to make sure that your hand is not underneath it, because that's where the sound chamber is and that's where the sound's going to come out of. So you hold it like this. You hold the other striker like you're holding a pencil. And as you bring it up to the surface, you just go small circles. So that's just making a yelping noise. You can also make some cuts. You can even do a purr. So that is a this is a slate pot call and a hardwood striker. And I've got a glass one, and so we have a little scratch surface that can scratch that up. So you can tell the difference between the glass and the slate. The slate's got a little bit of a softer sound, whereas the glass typically has a higher pitch sound, even though I'm using this striker. Now you can tell if I go to this striker on this, it's going to make a different sound. So you're not pushing down super hard on that, you're just pushing down enough to make that contact, and then the friction of the striker going back and forth on that surface is what's going to make that sound. So the other type of call that I'm going to talk about today is a diaphragm call or a mouth call. Essentially it's a series of latex reeds that are strung in between a piece of aluminum, and it sounds a little bit like this. You want to make sure when you put it in with the reed facing forward, because as you're using it, your air is going to be going over the front of it and making that noise in between the reeds. So you can see you got a lot of advantages with using a mouth call, mainly because turkeys have extremely good vision. If you're hiding, you've got your camo on, you've got your gun up, you're sitting there hiding, you don't have to have your hand out operating a box call, operating a pot call, that sort of thing. You can have this in your mouth and just be sitting there on the gun utilizing it. So you can also make all kinds of different noises. I had some yelps in there, I had some cuts in there, I did a little bit of a purr. You can also do a kee, which is a noise that turkeys make typically in the fall time. It's more of a gathering type of call when they're looking for other turkeys. So that's a mouth call or a diaphragm call. Now the other thing we want to talk about is locator calls. So right here is an owl hooter. So turkeys typically will gobble on the limb, on the roost, right before it turns light. So they start waking up about a half hour to an hour before shoot time. And as they do that, they're gobbling. Sometimes they're a little quiet. And to help make them gobble, you want to use a locator call. So any type of loud noise, especially one that is not threatening to a wild turkey, is going to be a great locator call. So I have an owl hooter here. You can make a couple different types of owl noises in there. So I actually use a spotted owl cadence because typically here on the West Coast we don't really have many barred owls. Recently that's changed. Now we do have some barred owls, but I use a spotted owl cadence on that. You can also use a great horned owl cadence. But in the morning as you're walking in trying to locate birds on the roost, something like this is really handy because it's going to make that noise. It's not going to be threatening to wild turkeys like a coyote howler or something like that. So it's a great way to get turkeys located on the roost. A couple other locator calls that I like to use. I like to use a crow call. This is really good midday. If you're out walking into a new area, you don't know where birds are at. This is a good one. It's really loud. It carries carries sound for over a long distance, and it's a good way to get a bird to shock gobble middle of the day. So that's a crow call. And then one that I really like to use in the evening time. So when birds are flying up into the roost, they will gobble typically right before it gets dark. And so when you're out there in the evening scouting for birds and you're trying to find them for the next day, it's really great to find where they're roosting. So I will use a coyote howler because it's really loud, it carries sound over a really long distance. I don't like to use it during the day because it could be threatening as is a predator of wild turkeys, so they may actually shut up after they hear it during the day. But as they're in the tree, they feel safe. Sometimes they will gobble to this more than the other locator calls. So that last little bit kind of helps to get birds to gobble. So those are the main turkey calls that I carry. Again, we've got the box call, we've got the pot calls, I've got the diaphragm calls. Those are your turkey calls. And as for locator calls, I've got my suite of 3. I've got the owl hooter, the crow call, and I've got the coyote howler. And that's typically what I use every day to go out and find and call in wild turkeys.